Hi, I'm James, and welcome to a slightly unusual Cold War Goes Hot episode where we're looking at horsed cavalry. Most people regard cavalry as being obsolete after the First World War, or during the First World War. And most cavalry units now, it's a traditional title, which leads to a lovely bit of trivia. The Irish cavalry have never ever used horses because they were only formed in 1922. Ironically, the only horses in Irish service belong to the artillery in a ceremonial role. But cavalry were used. In the 1960s, the Portuguese in Angola and Mozambique actually created the dragoons of Angola. And these were used as basically dragoons. They found them very successful because they being on a horse, they had a better view, and they were less vulnerable to landmines than vehicles. And interestingly, the dragoons were actually taken out of armoured vehicles and put on horses. They were that successful, the Rhodesians copied the idea with Grey's Scouts, which they used in the war there, worked in exactly the same way, and were regarded very successfully. But they've still been used since then. Mexico, which is very useful if you're a Twilight 2000 player, but which more later on, they actually kept horsed cavalry in a combat role until the mid-1990s. The Soviet Union had at least one unit in Kyrgyzstan, which remained horsed cavalry right up until the end of the Soviet Union. The Chinese have border patrol units that are cavalry. So there are plenty of them out there. And we will look at suitability for some of these later on. My reason for wanting horsed cavalry is for use in the game Twilight 2000, where with World War III having dragged on 5 years, technology is breaking down, fuel's scarce, more and more horses are being used. Now, for the British, there are three regiments that have converted to horsed cavalry in the background of the game, which is the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards, or the Scots Greys, the Queen's Royal Irish Hussars, and the 5th Royal Inniskilling Dragoons. So you've got three horsed units. It's also mentioned that the Royal Army of Scotland and the Welsh National Army are making use of horses for patrolling. So that's where I'm coming from. We mentioned the Mexicans earlier. Because of the Mexican-US fighting, horsed cavalry would be useful there, although I've yet to find a figure manufacturer that would suit for that. Now, you won't find many Cold War rules that actually deal with cavalry. I game using 7 Days to the River Rhine by Great Escape Games, which descended from the Iron Cross rules by the same publisher. Now, Iron Cross does actually have on the Facebook group some extension rules for cavalry, but I don't think they fitted the use that I wanted for them. They still allowed for mounted attacks and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I've put together a set of rules for 7 Days to the River Rhine, which you can see on the screen. The reason I've lowered the morale for them is because they're more vulnerable. So small arms fire and artillery fire will very quickly kill off cavalry, whereas infantry have got a higher survival rate. So try them, see if you think they work. If you think they do, great. If not, change them and let me know what you've changed. So we'll have a look at the figures, and what I'll do is I'll put some notes on the bottom just to give you a few notes on what I've done with regarding painting them. So the biggest question is, do they fit in with other figure ranges? Well, I've put two examples up on the screen. You can see here the cavalry blend in pretty well with the Peter Pig US Marines, which I got from their African range as well. You can see a link to those elsewhere. You'd expect blend in. You've also got the Plastic Soldier Company Cold War Russians, which blend in brilliantly with the Battlefront. They're almost interchangeable, and you can see that they will blend in quite happily on the tabletop. So good news there. If you do want to pick up British infantry dressed the same way as the cavalry, they do the range with various other weapons, and I have bought some of them. I just haven't got around to painting them yet. The only really annoying little thing is these cavalries have got the shirt sleeves rolled up, shirt sleeve order, whereas the infantry have got the sleeves rolled down. Slightly annoying, but there you go. Now there is only one pack of these figures in the range, so you will only be able to get figures armed with the SLR FAL rifle. They come in packs of 4, and there are 3 different poses. It seems to be you get a random 4th figure and one of the other 3 in each pack. It does mean that you are going to be limited on putting large armies together. Paint jobs will help with that a little, as you can see with some of mine. However, just be aware you are limited, although you're probably not going to need a really large force. Bearing in mind, using the Twilight 2000 system and using one stand to represent a full section, 20 figures would give you a full regiment at that scale. So that's only 5 packs of figures. So you don't need a lot for Twilight 2000.